Sup? Welcome to the unofficial Tedeschi Trucks podcast. This is episode number 71, and I am Adam Choate. To follow this show, it's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram, and on YouTube, just search Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. It is pretty easy to find. That's my channel, and I am at Adam Choate on Instagram and Twitter if you want to follow me. Please be sure to give this show a subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. And 5-star positive reviews on iTunes, Apple Podcasts are greatly appreciated. And of course, please subscribe on YouTube as well. Hit that subscribe button on the lower right portion of the screen. I believe that is right here, I think, or is it here? Anyway, I also have another podcast. It's called People We Love. And what I do is interview people from all walks of life about their lives and careers, mostly comedians, entertainment types, artists, entrepreneurs, all kinds of people. But it's casual conversation about their lives and careers. But I also ask everyone to highlight the people they love, who've inspired them, who've influenced them, who've helped them in their journey. It's been a lot of fun. Please check that out at People We Love Podcast on Instagram or peoplewelovepodcast.com for all things that podcast. But for today's episode of this podcast, we have musician, guitarist, slide guitarist, Jules Leyhe. From the Bay Area in California, Jules can always remember music being a special part of his life. Of course, we talk tons of Derek and Derek Trucks bands and TTB in this one. But beyond that, Jules pays homage to so many of the great guitar players who've inspired him over the years, slide players or otherwise. He's played the National Anthem at an Oakland A's game. He's been on stage with Buddy Guy, and is a very talented recording artist who I very much enjoyed chatting with. So let's just get started. Here's Jules Leyhe. Okay, so it's good to see you today, Jules Leyhe. Thank you for joining me on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Right on. Thanks, Adam.
Oh, for sure. How are you holding up during whatever year this is?
Good. Yeah, good question. It's feeling a lot better now than it's felt kind of the whole, I don't know, I've been like booking events, gigs and performances, and the future is just feeling like it's actually going to happen and not get canceled by COVID.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, obviously, but it's feeling good these days. I'm wrapping up another record right now. It's called Dub Blues. It's kind of like dub reggae music, but like blues, basically.
I'm gonna love that, by the way. That sounds up my alley.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited. So we're just wrapping that up kind of this month. That's going to be out like late spring, early summer, and just kind of getting back to playing a bunch. And that's what the rest of the year's kind of looking like. So
very cool. That's exciting. Congrats on the record, and I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, for sure, that sounds super, super cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we can just get into your musical journey and your life in music. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your background and like where you grew up, and you have siblings and family, and then we'll sort of unwrap and unpack it from there. But I'll let you give me kind of your background a little bit.
Cool. Well, I started out in Oakland, California. That's where I was born and raised, and I just kind of when I was like 13 or so, I saw School of Rock, and I had been, with Jack Black, classic, kind of people's favorite movie. And I had been listening to music already. I had like a CD player, and I had just loved music. I had been going to shows since I was a younger kid, like really like 6 or 7, like kind of my whole life. But when I saw School of Rock, that was kind of like the light bulb that made me go, I got to do this. And then I had seen Jeff Beck right then too. Like the same week I saw Jeff Beck play, and I saw the movie School of Rock, and it was just like, all right, my life changed. I just had to pick up a guitar and start playing. And anyway, long story short, I played a bunch, just loved, doing all that. Went to Berkeley out in Boston and studied at Berkeley for 4 years, graduated in 2012. So already almost 10 years ago. And I've been out in Oakland playing with my Family Jules band. That's what my band's called, the Family Jules Band, and a handful of other bands, including actually some other, like I played with this one group, the Alameda All-Stars. They were Greg Allman's touring band throughout the 90s and early 2000s. And I play Dwayne's parts, in essentially like Greg's band post Allman Brothers. But
that's special. That's
cool.
Yeah,
really cool. And this is a special little thing that I've got. This is a real Coricidin bottle that was given to me from Jelly Roll, who's the guitar player in the Alameda All-Stars. And this has been my slide that I play for, I don't know, since he gave it to me maybe a year or so ago. But it's got some voodoo to it. It's got some juju. This thing is really cool. I love how it sounds. And so anyway, but I'm out here in Oakland and just kind of been playing around with a bunch of different groups. I've played with Chris Kane a bunch out here. He's one of the Bay Area's definite greatest guitar players in the world, but he's a Bay Area gem who's really taken me under his wing. And if anyone out there who hasn't heard of Chris Kane, he's just like one of the greatest blues guys you ever heard. Kind of an amazing combo of like B.B. King and Albert King, and just an amazingly sweet guy. So anyway, just kind of played out here over the years with a bunch of different groups. And I took COVID as a time to make my own music kind of in a different way than I had before, and really craft these records that weren't just live, but they were like kind of more Sgt. Pepper's Beatles zone of like really using the studio as the instrument, and just doing wacky stuff and trying to make some really imaginative, crazy music. And so I have last couple records of mine are kind of been in that zone that came out during COVID. And that's sort of where I'm at now, is just trying to make that stuff actually happen in front of people. Now that we can, since COVID's kind of winding down, or at least, opportunities are coming back seemingly more now than they have the last couple of years. So I got to play the National Anthem at the Oakland.
I saw that. Was awesome. That's cool.
a couple times with this good old Coricidin bottle and this axe. And that was just a very cool, there's something about playing something like that, just one note at a time and with great tone. It's kind of like super Derek Trucks influenced, as far as maybe not the notes I'm playing or how I'm playing them, but just the idea, just get one note to sound really good. And you could play Happy Birthday and maybe like make people go, wow.
Yeah, Derek Trucks playing Happy Birthday on slide would be other. I would like, that would be in my rotation of like
right.
Listening
to. And getting ready for those anthem performances that I had, I was checking out other performances like Whitney Houston's from, I think it's the 91 Super Bowl.
Right.
It's amazing. Obviously Hendrix at Woodstock, but then there's a really cool Derek Trucks version he did for a Jacksonville Jaguars game.
That was somewhat recent. I think I've seen that. And Susan's of course done the anthem as well, sang it.
And man, Derek's version is really just walks in, picks up the guitar. There's a really nice kind of sizzly tremolo on the, like he's got a nice tone. He doesn't do too much with it. That sort of thing is really, really like what I love and take away from his playing, is the song does the work. Don't do too much crazy extracurricular, frilly stuff. That's like, if you can listen to guys like Derek Trucks and someone like Whitney Houston and take anything away from that, like Whitney can only sing one note at a time. Derek's often only playing one note at a time. So kind of thinking of it as like a sax player or something, or a singer, and just trying to make your instrument sing and get one note to sound really good at a time. And that's what I teach a lot of students that I work with, is like, if your tone's not there, we don't really want to hear it. So
makes sense. You know who also had a great rendition of the anthem, if you ever heard, is Marvin Gaye. Have you ever seen his at the NBA All-Star game, where he put a beat behind it, but not even just the beat, which was a kind of, I think, a unique thing, especially for that time. Just like obviously it being Marvin Gaye, and his vocal chops is just super. It was a showstopper, and I think everyone there knew it at the time, and you could tell that was going to go down as like as an amazing thing. So you're from Massachusetts originally, from that part of the country? Where are you from originally?
I'm from the Bay. I'm from East Bay. I grew up in Berkeley and then moved over here when I was like, I don't know, 8 or so. But I only went to Boston and lived there for school.
Gotcha.
And I was at Berkeley for 4 years and then just came back here. I loved Berkeley, but it was Boston was not my favorite place to live. I just kind of had a hard time there. So I came back here where my peeps were and just kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah, where you're more comfortable and, where you're what where you're from, I guess.
Yeah.
What about even before, the Jeff Beck concert and the School of Rock, seeing School of Rock when you were like in elementary school? What kind of like music was around in your life? What were you like listening to when you were a real kid? Just stuff your parents listened to or friends or like?
Definitely all of our home videos, there's just music going on. There's the Beatles, a lot of reggae, a lot of blues, a lot of jazz, funk. We're just always kind of like eating breakfast, kind of wiggling because Sly and the Family Stone's on in the background, or so just my that's came from both of my parents. My dad ended up taking me to a ton of music. I saw Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, the Rolling Stones, Buddy Guy, all as an 8-year-old. And so it was just kind of like, staying up late on a school night, going to the show was kind of how I grew up.
You're brainwashed at an early age.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it just kind of couldn't help it. It's just sort of been the way it's been done, my whole life pretty much. So, but I'm so glad for all of it. It's been so fun and life enriching, and can't really picture my life without all the music, and just love it so much. So
did your parents play instruments, or were they musicians or anything like that, or just fans of music?
Just fans, big fans. Both of my grandpas especially had a love for jazz, and really knew like bebop and memorized a lot of music, and not as performers or players themselves, but just as lovers of the music. So I can't help but feel like maybe some of that skipping a generation, and then all the exposure I got, I was just ready to soak it up. And one thing that's kind of a fun fact is I have something called absolute pitch or perfect pitch, which so like you can just like sing a note and like that's an F. And that comes in handy when you're doing something like playing slide guitar or listening to like Derek Trucks licks and then like computing them and trying to spit them back out. So it's maybe advantageous in like pitch, but it doesn't do you any good. It's kind of like, okay, well, nice, good for you. Just still got to work your butt off if you want to be any good.
Sure.
But I can't help it. I feel like one of my favorite aspects of music, and especially guitar playing, is like microtonal, little in between the nooks and crannies notes, and total like slide guitar mode. Of like the difference between the major and the minor third. There's so much there for all you music nerds out there or players who like. There's just so much info that you can get with the slide, and so that's kind of my goal musically, is to get all that info across and like really get in there like Derek Trucks or Aretha Franklin, or fill in the blank with your favorite singer or anyone who plays kind of like that.
Sure, there's like I guess you would say that there's an infinite amount of possibilities and notes between the frets, if you're playing slide.
And just since you said that, like just so that people kind of understand, and I've got my guitar here, like
yeah, it does the SG right here for the listeners.
So instead of going like one fret at a time, and if you just drag your finger, it kind of sounds like this. Right, the frets define the notes. What the slide does, and a lot of people haven't seen this before, is it just goes like this. So you're taking, it just becomes a spectrum, one long string. And instead of a scale sounding like, it sounds like this.
No, I like that right there.
Yeah. So a little more.
That sounds great right there.
A little more sing-songy, and it just takes that's essentially like what the slide is doing, in case you didn't know. And it just becomes really fascinating with the ways you can, I don't know, play guitar, of course, but like tell the story. If we're talking about blues or something, there's just so many ways to express yourself. And I mean, talking about Derek, this is so cool because he's such a huge, he's easily, like the slide guitar player in the world right now and has been for a long time. So
Preaching to the choir.
yeah. So I love diving into Derek talks every day. But I'm curious what other sorts of, oh, and since we're podcasting, it's not live and everything, and just like, I don't know, do you want to like go into, or where do you want to go next, man?
Where do I want to go next? I want to hear more about your why don't you tell me more about like where you went musically, like once you discovered School of Rock and Jeff Beck, and like, because that was around 12, 13, you said, you think. So that's when you first picked up the guitar.
Hmm?
What were you, I'm guessing you were finding more and more rock and blues influences around then, and you started playing more formally.
I loved Jimi Hendrix. Definitely. I mean, I loved Buddy Guy. I loved Stevie Ray Vaughan. The Strat was what I started on. And the Strat, those guys all playing a Strat, it's a certain way of playing. It's a certain way of, the tone and everything. It really lends itself to a certain style of playing, say, versus something like Slash, Guns N' Roses, like on a Les Paul. It's just sort of a different world of, how you touch the strings and how you play the instrument and how the music sounds. So anyway, I just kind of started and loved the sound of the Strat, and how guys like Mark Knopfler, Jeff Beck, those were all my heroes. And I just listened to Dire Straits, Jeff Beck, all the Buddy Guy Hendrix stuff, Band of Gypsies. I just like memorized all that and just listened to the crowd noise and picture what it was like to be there that night, and just like really obsessed over that music to get to know it, just to the point of like, I don't know, then just I had to just spend enough time getting my hands around the instrument to like get the technique, and just none of that stuff's really about like, I don't know, the coolest part about all these guys is that it's not like a theoretically difficult thing to understand how their music works. Or like even a song like Sultans of Swing doesn't take too long to learn how the chords work and everything. But gosh, you could never be bored the rest of your life playing it if you get into the how many different ways can I tell the story and move across the fretboard and, dynamics and everything. I mean, there's so many ways to get through even like a 12-bar blues. Like, I don't know, listening to Steve Ray Vaughan play Texas Flood or something, blues in G pretty much. You can still never, or at least for me, I'm never bored. There's so many versions to listen to, ways you can play it. So just started doing all that. And by the time I got to Berkeley, where there are all these people who play all sorts of styles of music around the world, it was hard not to be just a sponge soaking all this stuff in and just loving it. Everyone's so passionate about whatever they're passionate about. But it was largely, garage bands playing like blues. I definitely went through like a Rage Against the Machine phase.
This is all growing up as like a teenager.
Yeah. Like, a lot of like blues rock type of stuff, playing, Cream and just but there was just one phase of like really rocking out with effects. And I played in a couple bands where I was kind of like the special effects guy. I had like a whammy pedal and delay and, whammy bar on my guitar. And like, just kind of like, okay, Jules, go nuts. And that, it's only fun to totally go nuts and go bonkers for a minute until you actually want to like have something unique to say and make that kind of like Tom Morello. That stuff he's doing is so innovative and so wacky and weird. Like what's my sort of avenue of that? Or how can I do something that's, and a lot of that it's trying a bunch of crazy stuff that may or may not really work that great. But I feel like now with this dub blues record that I'm coming out with, my sort of sound or big picture idea of basically like modern styles of production and things like basically like an equivalent of dub reggae, but dub blues. That's kind of the most straightforward way of putting what I'm trying to do, is just combine older elements of blues and kind of classical, like Americana-ish music with more modern elements, and just kind of like fuse them together.
That's your vibe. It seems like just reading about you and listening to your music and talking to you briefly so far is like a real importance and priority on taking the blues, but I don't want to say modernizing it, but just exploring different avenues and crossovers and hybrids. And I think that's great. That's super cool. I like the traditional stuff. I like I'm open to all the different kinds of blues. And I think that's what keeps it alive. If people are not getting mad, hey, you're not playing traditional blues, you're probably, I think that means you're doing something right.
I appreciate that, because honestly, that's something that's kind of funny, is that when you're doing this slide guitar thing, and if you're not just going,
you cut out there for a second, but you were playing Elmore James style stuff.
Right. Something we all know and love. We've heard that a ton of times. It's like, okay, it's kind of like, wait, if you're doing anything new, it's easy to piss people off.
Yeah.
And so, I wouldn't blame people for being kind of like, but more often than not, people are responding really well and understanding and are appreciative of trying it, some new spin. And we all know and love all the classic stuff. We can go listen to it whenever we want. So let's try something different,
Sure. You got to put your own unique spin on it. When did you start playing slide guitar? Was that later, or was that when you were growing up?
I love the sound, but I remember being so frustrated starting off. I was probably like 16 or so, and I was listening to Muddy Waters a lot. I definitely went through a big phase when I was like 16, 17. I was listening to a lot of like Muddy Waters, Son House, Robert Johnson, and Django Reinhardt. Just a lot of the like 30s, 40s, and slightly earlier, like the earliest, blues field recordings of the guys who, like, you can barely hear what's going on. And
I've gone down those rabbit holes. I love that stuff too.
Yeah. And so I realized, well, Muddy Waters, when he's going, he's playing that stuff, Can't Be Satisfied,
right?
And so I started just figuring out, and he kind of had he had this one solo that he would play over and over. It's like he'd kind of like, and then he'd do this like, he just had these like, he's like, there's definitely no rules in this book that he's breaking all the rules in that book. He's just inventing some crazy thing. So I remember just trying to figure out what he was doing. And that was kind of the first thing that I started getting into it. But I remember seeing David Lindley.
Right. I know who that is. Yeah, sure.
Totally killing slide player. And right around 16 years old. And I talked to him after the show, and I was telling him, I love this, but I'm frustrated. I can't do it. It's hard. And I suck. And he said, hey, you will listen to Derek Trucks, but listen to another guy, Sonny Landreth. And so I remember,
another great.
So I remember listening to Sonny Landreth, and Sonny's doing all this stuff. Like Sonny goes like, he's fretting behind the note. And that just like other little techniques that, Derek doesn't fret behind the slide that much. Part of that, and in case someone out there is going to know.
Yeah, Derek's on the ring finger and you play on the pinky finger with the slide.
Because I'm fretting behind the slide a little bit. That's kind of the reason for anyone who's curious or, wants to try that at home. Because if it doesn't make a difference to you, I'd put the slide on the pinky. If you're starting out, especially. No rules on that. Like I said, with Muddy and the whole rule book thing, there are no rules here, but that's just kind of maybe why you might do that. So
yeah, there's so many different options and possibilities and no wrong or right answer. And I've fiddled a little bit with the slide over the years, not very successfully, but I was more on the pinky as well. But if you put it on the ring finger, then you could kind of use your pinky, and you could do some chords also if you want to do some chords, exactly. Your pinky and your other two fingers. Bonnie Raitt's on the middle finger, which is even probably the most unusual, or one of the more unusual things.
Right. And I've seen these fancy slides now where you can like swing it around and then play fretted and then just swing the slide back. So it's like you don't take it on and off. But there are a lot of sort of little doodads for for slide,
So it sounds like Muddy Waters as a teenager, that was sort of your introduction into slide.
Yeah, and I mean that led really quickly to Duane Allman and the Allman Brothers, and I the piece of slide guitar playing that really changed my life and made me like really want to be really good at it was the Duane Allman's intro on Statesboro Blues live at Fillmore East. It's just the signature like Duane thing, and every time I listen to that, I swear, just the nuance and the phrasing and the tone and everything about it is just so spectacular, and just it's really amazing.
No, I agree. I listened to that album and the Allman Brothers, different live versions, and like every day, basically.
Yeah, and for in 2022, it's really important to remember that back when that was recorded, the sound of these two Marshall amps cranked with the Les Pauls, and these guys are playing this kind of slightly jazzy, modal, stretching out, bluesy, but like not just blues music. They really were inventing and creating this new thing that's just now we know it really well because it's been around the whole time, but just like all the other stuff going on, Cream and Hendrix and the Who, and there's just an incredible, amazing amount of music that's being created right then, and the Allman Brothers are definitely right in the middle of it, doing their own thing. So, but yeah, that Statesboro Blues intro is still just like right on the Mount Olympus of all the greatest slide guitar playing of all time.
We've covered a lot of already of the great players dropping all like we covered a lot of them, I think, already. I apologize if we missed a few. We may get to them. So when it was David Lindley who said to go check out Derek Trucks. Is that did I hear that correctly?
I was listening to Derek at that time. I knew of him already, but right. It was Sonny Landreth who David Lindley told me to go listen to as a 16-year-old.
Oh, that's right.
And he did this. David's kind of a funny guy. He went, listen to Sonny Landreth. And it was like, whoa, okay, it was like, listen up here, Jules. And Sonny's obviously one of the greatest ever. He's amazing. So
that's so cool that he would say that about another artist, and I'm sure other artists do this all the time, but he could easily have said, oh, go check out what I did on so and so or whatever. He could easily do that, and that would not be an ego trip or anything like that at all. Just be like, oh, this would be helpful for you. But he's like, you got to listen to this other guy. And that's most musicians seem to be that way, which is cool. So do you remember when you discovered Derek's music at all?
I remember it was definitely in that same time period, because it was, he was such a he looked like such a kid. He had such a just a way of playing that was so striking. He's really the way he performs, it's like, okay, well, he's really focused and standing there, and there's this heavy thing going on, and it's giving me the goosebumps every time. What's going on? But I must have been about 16 or so, and I'm 31 now, so like 15 years ago, and I love those early the Derek Trucks Band records, like what is it, with Volunteered Slavery and
yeah, that's all great stuff for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Tedeschi Trucks Band just as much, but from a guitar player's standpoint, those like I remember hearing Volunteered Slavery, the way that record starts, Song Lines.
Right.
Record. And just, it's like, oh, whoa, he just melts your face in like a minute and a half, and you're drawn in and you can't help but keep listening, and also over the years where that was just like this unattainable, I could never play anything like that. But after working and just chipping away at it, actually like starting to, or like getting somewhere in the ballpark of some of that stuff, kind of, sort of anyway, and just at least understanding that just, Volunteered Slavery, he's playing one note at a time. But the facility, the way he plays and knows all the notes on the neck and all the phrasing is so perfect, or, just so beautiful. It's like, okay, we'll get to work, because he can do it. So you probably could too, or do something like that. It's kind of how I felt with all that stuff. It's like, transcribe, listen, learn it, love it, and then you end up kind of doing your own. You don't want to just copy him, that's for sure. That's nice, flattering and all that stuff, but you don't want to go out and perform a show and just play Derek Trucks licks. That's not what anybody, unless you're maybe in a Allman Brothers or
tribute band, yeah.
right. Then it's like kind of fine, of course. But that's just something to like artistically kind of like, I've been trying to make sure I don't have people go, hey, well, that's great. Glad you can imitate Derek Trucks all day. What do you have to say? But yeah, Derek's, he gets better too.
I know, and I've said that on this podcast, and that amazes me more than anything, that I'm able to notice that and just hear new things. I think that you hear him do new things, make new sounds, different combinations of notes and melodies for solos, and try different things for intros. That's why I love this band and Derek Trucks as a guitar player, because you're constantly on your toes, and there's new stuff and fresh stuff, and whatever the most recent version of a song is, that sounds like the quintessential best version ever, is the latest one, until I go back and listen to what he did last year or last week, and then I'm just like, oh, that's great too. And it's interesting to hear you say that you get goosebumps, and I forget how you described it, but the music pulls you in. And I feel like I get those experiences more from Derek's playing and from Tedeschi Trucks music than really any other music that I listen to, is the goosebumps, especially from his playing and their music and his playing. It just really does draw you in, bring you in, hook you in, and keep you and sustain you throughout a song, a show, a concert, and albums, and year after year and day after day of listening to the music. It's just, I think it must be the melodic vocal quality of his playing and that really all the musicians in TTB, have going for them, that hooks you in and keeps you. Not that other artists can't do that and don't do that too, but something really about the I think the vocal quality of his playing, it really connects to an audience in a different way.
I can't help but just observe and feel like the band always gives love to all of the band. Like Susan will always give love to all the bandmates, and they've had some tragedies where some band members have passed away in the last few years. And man,
of course, Kofi.
Yeah, they're they're a family. They love each other, and not all bands are like that. So I can't help but feel like that's just something that's just a humongous part of the music. And they don't tell you that directly, but if you are paying attention and you can feel it, that they just love each other, and that's what's getting poured into the music for sure. And it really matters.
Yeah, that's a topic that's come up, over the course of doing this podcast over and over again, is the type of people Derek and Susan seem to be. I mean, there's mountains of evidence that they're great people, and then that they treat each other and their band really well, and that's a big part of the experience, is that they're down to earth people who genuinely care about each other, and as fans you can see that, and that makes you want to connect to them even more. Like you're able to connect with them that much more beyond the music, and that makes the music more it all kind of feeds into each other. This type of energy being put out there.
Definitely, it's great. It's what we need. And I was telling you, Adam, earlier before we started, but I'm just thrilled because today I bought my tickets to see them in August at the Greek Theater in Berkeley. So it's funny timing to be doing this with you today when I have that to look forward to now.
Oh, that's great. That is super exciting. I think we're just going to continue to jump around a little bit, and that's cool. When was the first time you've seen either Tedeschi Trucks band or Derek live, or do you remember that? Have you seen them before?
I do remember. I went to the Eric Clapton Crossroads Guitar Festival in 2000. What was that? It was 2007, I think. And gosh, there were who was there? It was like BB King, Buddy Guy, Eric Clapton, Derek Trucks, I think Robert Cray, David Hidalgo. Like there's just a who's who. It was the Clapton Crossroads Festival, one of the first couple times they did it, and it was just epic. And Derek was one of the, he really stood out. He just I don't think it's just the slide being his voice. It's just the way that his music sounds and the way that he plays and everything. He can't help but just stand out from everybody else that he's playing with.
Always. I've seen him on, not to cut you off, but I've seen him on stage with multiple guitar players, whether it's like at award show things and these types of things. And beyond the things that you're describing, his ability and melody and all this stuff is like his tone. His tone really cuts through, I think, is what it is, even perhaps more than anything. Is it always like he can play one note, two notes, slide, no slide, but that sound, it always just like seems to cut through, even if it's not the max volume compared to everyone else.
And it's just crazy. I don't know how many people know just how great of a slide of a non-slide player he is.
Right.
Because when you hear him bend strings and just like really hit the, he's playing his butt off. He really plays. I mean, he's just absolutely like no shortage of nice things to say about his playing. It's really spectacular.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 2007 Crossroads. Susan, of course, was there. That's when she played Little by Little with Derek Trucks band. This is not the year they played Midnight in Harlem, though. That was probably later. That was a little bit later.
That was the next one. It wasn't that one. It was before that.
But Tedeschi Trucks band and Derek and Susan, they like a lot of people became fans, I think, through the Crossroads Festival, which I forget because I always ask everyone, how did you become a fan? When did you first hear them? And more than one person, has told me like, yeah, from watching that or being at the Crossroads, like just like it's great that Clapton did that and put this together and gets people exposed to different artists.
And that was another thing I remember was hearing Clapton. Right. I think Derek Trucks was Clapton's guitar player then, or, at that.
They did do some touring together for sure.
Right. And so, they did Layla and they did all that, Derek played Dwayne's parts and it was just, it was like, okay. Yeah. No, I'm pinching myself.
Goosebumps. Oh, you're pinching yourself. Right. I thought you were doing checking for goosebumps, but yeah, either both probably. Yeah.
Crazy. So that was inspiring. And I was, 17, hadn't been to school or anything yet. And just like, okay, well, this is what I want to do the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's kind of what I actually meant to ask you. It was like when you were going through high school and whatever, it sounds like you're playing in some different bands, learning a little bit of slide, going to some shows. And then you obviously decided to study music and pursue music. But in your mind, what did you think or plan that you would be doing either, throughout school, after school? It's just like, I'm going to be a touring musician. I'm going to be a studio musician. I'm going to do all things music. Like what was like the plans, goals, dreams, like when you were 16, 17?
Good question. That's it's funny because at that point, I just wanted to be doing music. Well, okay, so an event had happened that I hadn't mentioned before, which was when I was 16, I ended up playing with Buddy Guy. And it was pretty amazing because, well, for a number of reasons, I had just been playing in my buddies' garage bands and just kind of, 16-year-old kid in a garage band playing, and I loved it. But when I played with Buddy, it was at this Saratoga Mountain Winery here, which holds about 5,000 people. It's like a full-on big outdoor venue, and it's Buddy Guy. And I just had this incredible night where I played with him and just everybody in the crowd was like, holy moly, who is this kid? What's going on? And I just had all these validations of like, oh, wow, this is what you have to do. It's so cool.
You can't like if you play with Buddy Guy, you can't stop. It's like all these things are like not the be all and end all. They're amazing experience, but they're like nice benchmarks and signs that you're doing the right thing, whether it's playing the national anthem or playing with Buddy Guy. Is that the one from 3620? I watched a little bit of it before we started.
That was the last time. So
that's because that's more recently. Yeah, you played with this dude a couple of times.
Yeah, 4 times over the years, and then but I would see him when he came to town. I'd hang out in his dressing room, and like, he's been very cool to me for now half my life. I've known him and just had a connection with him, and
that's incredible.
Yeah, so that that basically for me, I felt like I could. Not that I'm in the league of Buddy Guy, not what I'm saying by hold my own. I could just play up there and hang out. And it was like, oh, wow, okay, well, I want to work hard at this. And I want to do this. This is so I don't want to do something else. I want to do this. I felt that way as a 16-year-old. So it just felt like, you're right, it's a nice benchmark. It doesn't do any other work for you than that. And it's really fun to look back on and tell you the story of, but it doesn't do anything else for me. You know, I got to play and I got to work on my intonation and everything every day, that's for sure. But yeah, that was definitely a life-changing event that I just felt like, you know, is an important thing in my life's history, and why
Powerful. It's powerful. It's a very, I feel like
Oh,
it's a very powerful feeling, I'm sure, that like this gave you, like, and that power, like that and feeling it gave you, like expresses itself in inspiration and just
and that's what Buddy wants. That's what Buddy wants. He wants someone like me to feel inspired and to help keep the music going, the blues specifically. So, I mean, I, you know, that aside, I want to, that's my goal with the music that I'm making, is introducing maybe music that's sort of dying off, or whatever you, however you want to put the blues. I don't think it's dying off. It's just old. You know, it kind of needs to be introduced to the younger generation, perhaps in a new way.
right.
So, you know, that's it. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying the blues is dead or anything. It's not that. It's just, you know, with guys like Buddy Guy, he's 86. He's kind of one of the last living blues greats.
I
So,
think he said he's the last one. He's like, I'm the last one. Who's left? And he's like, it's me. I
yeah,
think he
yeah,
said that.
yeah. So anyway, you know, that's all I'm saying here, is we got to make sure that this incredible, important music and you know, history of the world, and especially, you know, blues really comes from, well, yeah, blue, you know, it's just very important that it's carried on.
Oh, for sure. And Buddy Guy is known for giving extra attention to that, and helping develop and mentor younger guitar players such as yourself. I know he's worked with and is friends with and tours with and does shows with Quinn Sullivan. I don't know if you know Quinn Sullivan, of course, and Chris Stone Kingfish as well. Because, you know, do you know Buddy Guy's coming out with a documentary?
Right.
The documentary I pulled called what is it called? The Torch. I watched the trailer. It's coming out, I think, in a week or so, March 18th. I'm not sure where it looks, maybe limited release. I gotta find that because I want to go see that. Are you in it?
No, I'm not. I'm not actually in it, but it's so cool that that's the whole point. I'm glad that you brought that up, because, you know, I'm not actually physically in it, but having, you know, known him and played with him, that shows you just how it really is what he means. And
I was going to say that. He's not like, I'm going to mentor 5 guitar players and then we're going to make a movie about it. If you're a young guitar player that he's mentored and you played with him when you were 16, like, and you're not in the film, that means there must be dozens, hundreds. I have no idea how many other guitar players who've crossed paths with him over the years, who he's influenced directly, worked with directly, played with directly, give lessons to, be they guitar lessons or life lessons or otherwise hung out with him. Like, what an influence that guy has had. Like, wow.
And he is on those records with Muddy Waters
and Jimi Hendrix, and he's played with everybody.
Yes. So it's, you know, I mean, to say that's, yeah, if that doesn't inspire you, I don't know what might, you know. So anyway, I'm very lucky and just blessed to have crossed paths with some of the folks that I have, definitely, who have all encouraged me tremendously over the years. So I feel like I have a ton of work to do and just a lot of folks to, you know, make proud, and you know, there's no end in sight of hard work and recording and just kind of pushing my own boundaries, and, you know, it's exciting.
Oh, for sure. I'm excited for more stuff. When you were in Boston, tell me a little bit about that experience of like school. I know you didn't like the city, but
you know, so a great example is my next door roommate was Mono Neon, who is one of the most amazing bass players. He's just an incredible bass player. And the amount of talent and just like really gifted people walking around the hall is just pretty astounding at Berklee. And it's funny because everybody's just sort of like, they were kind of a lot of big fish in the pond that they came from, figuratively speaking. And now everybody's just the same fish in one big pond. they were all that before, but you know what I'm saying. The playing field's kind of
right. That happens in life. Everyone was great at baseball in their one town, and then they go to college, and it's like, oh, everyone was the best in their county in whatever.
And so it's a really unique thing. I really feel like there's definitely some ego stuff, as there is in life, but more often than not, and mostly, people just wanted to kind of play and learn together and grow and teach each other what they're learning. And but I think the experience of being in the ensembles, having the private instruction, and just the small class size, everything was pretty small and intimate. So there was no sneaking by. You couldn't BS your way through it. You just couldn't really do that. So I think all of that was just very valuable. And I look back fondly on the time there. Like I said earlier, it was difficult for me for some reasons, but the music part and just diving in and loving it and being immersed by other musicians and just music was an experience that I don't know if I could have gotten that anywhere else. So I feel like, very glad that I did that.
No, that's super cool. So, and then after school, you came back to the West Coast to play music and pursue music, and we got into a bunch of that for sure. What about seeing Tedeschi Trucks Band or any more TTB anecdotes, experiences, shows, that you've gone to over the years?
I went to the shows. They did. They recorded an album live at the Fox.
Right, that was in Oakland. You were there?
If I walked down to the Fox, I'd be there in about 20 minutes or something. It's right down the street.
You were at those shows that they did those albums at?
I went to those shows, and I've loved Derek a ton, but that was kind of like maybe peak Derek time for me. I was just like so obsessed. And obviously going to see him 2 nights in a row didn't hurt the obsession. I kind of dove headfirst even further. So I love that record, and just fun to see the band evolve from, the Crossroads time in 2007 to that was probably about 2017 or something like that, maybe about 10 years, and just see like how he's changed and what the band is doing differently.
They weren't even TTB then. I don't even know if they were like Soul Stool Revival at that point. It was just some of Derek's musicians, Mike and Madison, and some of Susan's musicians all playing together at these different festivals and stuff. I'm not even sure what they were billed under at that time.
Yeah, but it just times like that. I'm trying to think of some of their specific ones. That was just kind of like
that's a big one. That's super cool.
And I just love listening to that record and remembering right, that wasn't the like which one was which night, because it wasn't all just one night and then one night. It was they kind of picked and choose between the takes, and
I see what goes on the album.
Right, the nerdy folks who can like remember all that stuff, like paying attention and like taking notes. Just fun to like see your heroes like that, and get to spend a couple nights, and not just one night and then see them 2 years later or something. It's nice to like get in that zone and just follow them for a couple days at least.
What jumps out at me about those shows is that they played These Walls at. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember that with Alam Khan.
Yeah,
on the Sarod.
Like beautiful. Oh yeah, and I love. I could go for them doing more of that sort of modal, like one key, kind of like Eastern sort of the Sarods type of stuff, where he's doing all the like Vishwa Mohan Bhatt type of lines, and Ali Akbar Khan. I would love to just see them just do nothing but that, kind of like the older Derek Trucks Band stuff.
Sure.
Definitely
more world influences, perhaps. And
but
maybe we're gonna get that from TTB. I know they have a lot of music coming out. I don't know if you heard what their plans are for this year.
That's super cool that and that's definitely largely why I'm so excited to see them. Then is just to see that live and experience that.
Yeah, we're gonna have like 100 and God knows how many songs now that they're gonna be able to pull out of their hat anytime, including God knows how many more new ones. Like it sounds like they're putting out like some sort of quadruple album or something this year. I don't know in how many parts, sections, or what, but it sounds like we're gonna have like 30 plus songs of originals. I don't know. I'm just throwing numbers out there. Nobody quote me or yell at me if this things change between now and later this year. But there's going to be new music, and that's super exciting to listen to the albums and also hear live for sure.
I think there's just been this giant, the being forced to not be out in front of people during COVID time. I think there's a lot of work that has been produced, a lot of recorded music that's about to, be released, and the world's about to get all this new music, like Derek Trucks, like Tedeschi Trucks Band, and that's just like one sign of. I'm sure they've been so busy recording all sorts of stuff, so just can't wait to hear all of it.
Oh yeah, that is me too. Super exciting. Is there anything else we need to cover or talk about or discuss? Do you want to play? Do you want to play something? You want to?
Sure. And so tell you what, just since if I'll play something, one of my favorite things, and for the guitar nerds out there, this is an SG, just like Derek. It's the 61 reissue by Gibson. Really nice, just awesome. I love this guitar. And I think something that's important if you're trying to get into, slide guitar especially, is that I'm in open E. That's what Derek plays in. And it's important to not just play in the key of E, right? Just because we're in open E, Derek's playing in open E too, but the songs are in all sorts of keys.
I did notice this. I'm like, how the hell is he doing that?
Right. And so that part is tricky, and that takes a little while to, that takes a lot of work getting the hang of it. But let me just sort of play. I'll play in the key of C for a sec, and I'll kind of try to, I'll just play some Derek Trucksy sort of stuff, and I'll try to do some of the things that Derek does. And he does things like single note lines, playing in a scale over one string. So it's not like, that's what the slide does. It gets us out of playing these things, like not thinking about it much, like this, like that's cool. But, we could kind of do that till the cows come home. With the slide, we have to like really focus and, play stuff in tune. So I'll just kind of think about Derek and play some, I was just watching earlier today when he was playing, what is it? Slow Blues in C. I think it's Stormy. It's not Stormy Monday, but,
Very cool. It's funny, when you first started playing the slide earlier in the podcast recording, I'm like, oh, I'm about to hijack my own podcast and turn it into a guitar lesson. Because that's I'm always tempted to. I'm like, forget this like conversation about your life, and like, can you just play that lick again, and then I'll take out my guitar and my slide, and we'll get it. Very cool. That's awesome, man. I would love to be able to make those sounds, but I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon. There's a lot going on over here, but I really thank you for your time and appreciate it. And I'll let you get on with the rest of your evening for sure. Why don't you plug or promote whatever you're working on or
Sure, man.
do all that stuff?
Well, thanks for having me on, Adam. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
And if anyone's curious, I do have a ton of my own original music. I play a lot of slide, not only slide, but I have, I think, 9 solo albums out now, and they're all available. They're available everywhere. But if you want to support me best, or support any artist for that matter best, Bandcamp is a really great way to do that. Checking out my website, julesleyhemusic.com. That's a great way to just get all my videos. I've got a YouTube channel. All my albums are there. I do all sorts of, I've got teaching, I've got all sorts of stuff that you can check out. So I'd say julesleyhemusic.com. I'm really easy to Google. I'm the only Jules Leyhe that comes up. And yeah, I love
Leyhe.
Leyhe. That's right. JULESLEYHE. But yeah, I love connecting with everybody out there, music nerds, people who want to take lessons, you know, whatever you got. I just want to, you know, get the connect with as many folks as I can. So
I think that when your parents were playing music when you were growing up and eating breakfast and getting like the energy going at the kitchen table, I don't think that ever like stopped inside of you. It just seems like that energy is just like, you still have that like same energy, I'm guessing, from when you were 7 years old. And that's cool. I like, because I don't know, because I feel like people lose that sort of like childlike curiosity and desire to create and just have fun, and like adulthood and the daily struggles of life can overtake us, and we could lose that sense of wonder and just joy. And I can see that it looks like you haven't lost that, and it's stronger than ever, and that's super cool to see.
Well, thank you. And I mean, it's this thing's fault.
Right. That's I'm blaming that for why I'm here doing this podcast right now. It's because of that damn slide and the music and Susan's vocals and the band and all the music that they've been influenced by that I love too. Like the music is just like super inspiring.
Yeah, man, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Adam. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. We'll talk more soon, and I'll try to see you live at a show, the TTB, one of your own, maybe both. We'll do it up.
Definitely, man. Sounds great, man.
You got to talk soon. So there you go. Episode 71 with Jules Leyhe. That was fun. And I definitely, again, appreciate his time. I got to see him live sometime. Besides his great playing, I just love his energy and disposition. Anyway, for now, hope everyone is hanging in there out there. Please check out Tedeschi Trucks Podcast on Instagram. That's at Tedeschi Trucks Podcast. Please remember to tap subscribe or follow on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, however the hell you listen to this show. Works for me. And again, positive reviews on iTunes, 5-star positive reviews on iTunes, Apple Podcasts are greatly appreciated. Tedeschi Trucks Podcast is the YouTube channel. That's pretty easy to find, especially if you're watching this right now. You are there. So please be sure to subscribe on YouTube as well. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Adam Choit. Tedeschi Trucks Band themselves, their website is TedeschiTrucksBand.com. I have another podcast called People We Love. Of course, I mentioned it earlier. Check that out at People We Love Podcast on Instagram, peoplewelovepodcast.com. But I think that's about all I got for today. I appreciate you guys listening as always. And let's talk more soon. Later.